Hey, everybody, and welcome back. This is our second episode of Project Muse. Um, what the show is I draw Sean, the silhouette over there. He creates music, and every episode we have a theme. So our last episode was identity, and this episode we decided to do movies. So I already did mine. Sean already made his song. We're just gonna play him and then talk to each other. For me, I have a speed draw. Would you like to see it, Sean?
I'm itching to see it, man. I've waited weeks for this.
Yeah, I've been wanting to listen to your stuff too because you've been talking it up a lot, and that's
hmm
pretty good from you. Because you usually like hate yours until you play it. But anyway, all right, here's mine in three, two, one. Okay, so for this one, again, the topic was movie. So I had like a concept in my head of what I wanted, but I couldn't figure out how to like convey it. So you see me making like thumbnails. I decided I wanted like a person looking at a screen, and then so like I wanted a projector to be projecting a movie, and then I wanted that movie to be like going into that person's eye, going into their brain, being interpreted there, and then like you see the final product basically. And then I wanted it to go the other way where there's the person that makes the movie, what they have in their head, what they wanted to make. Anyway, it was this whole conceptual thing. And I wanted to go outside my comfort box and draw female figure because I always draw some dude doing something cool or some grotesque like monstrosity. I never really do female figure, which is something I've been needing to work on. So I decided to like get a 3D model and do kind of a study essentially because anatomy is hard to like remember because I haven't drawn it in a while. So I just tried to like do that and then I was going to deconstruct it from there. And I'm like, okay, well I know I want it to be us to be seeing in the head. I end up not going with any of this stuff you're seeing. What you the end product is completely different. And you know what, sometimes you just have to do that. Like you just kind of have to hammer things out. This is me again. I'm still futzing around trying to figure out how to do it, but each iteration gets me a little bit closer to what I'm thinking. I literally had to write it out because I was explaining it to Dina and it made no sense, and it probably made no sense here. So again, instead of just having an idea and going in and doing it, I had a concept going in. I didn't have like a visual how I wanted it to look yet.
Uh-huh.
So it's just me really trying to figure out how the hell technically it would work. But here it is. I'm just like, you know what? I watched oh goodness, what is it? It's that really trippy thing that was on Adult Swim. It was like uh after or at home or I forget what the heck it was called. Anyway, it's very trippy and Dina showed me a thing and it reminded her of that with me explaining it. So I just started like blocking out some figures with color. I ended up using like the polygon tool, which is really fun to actually make art with, by the way. It's really fun. Um, because I saw a style online. I was watching a lot of stuff trying to figure out styles. And I'm like, you know what? I really always liked this style. I just have never tried it. So I was just kind of learning as I was going. And then at a certain point, I like it started to make sense of what I wanted. And like I said, this is completely different from what I started with. Like you can already see a disgusting eyeball sticking out from
Yeah.
the side. Um, it has like a monitor on it, and so that's supposed to be like its interpretation of the video it's watching on the screen. And then behind that, I'm gonna have something else with a screen. And yeah, so I was having a lot of fun figuring this style out, but it's very hard because it's a lot of just confident lines, big blocky colors, just all that. And like I said in
hmm
the last one, I pretty much only do sketches. Like or not sketches, but like I have that very like it looks a certain way and for it you got to like go out a line a whole bunch of times. This, you just one stroke, you're done, go. Here again forgot how to edit videos. This is I was downloading something on Steam, and I walked away from the computer, and I came back, and I'm like, oh shit. But yeah. So backgrounds in these are usually very simple, but have like a interesting effect to them. So that was interesting because that's another thing I'm bad with, which is background. So I really like challenged the hell out of myself to maybe a little too much this time, but I just went for it. Yeah, I decided to go with that like remember when TVs used to do that where there was less like those bars? I think it's like a test or something. Yep. So I found that, put that in, started making this. I wanted the line work to be different from the monster that I created over there. So it's like the same but a little different. More like straight lines, whereas that one's like more blobby. I mean, they're not straight. I made sure also to not have any straight lines in this, except for like the background, just because I wanted it to like stand out even more, even beyond the color. That was me going into settings and literally turning off the sticky keys for shift because I haven't done that, I guess. But yeah, I kind of struggled here because I made the eye really detailed, and then the noise on the screen was actually like detailed, I guess, because of the particle effect look. So that's kind of going back to my other style. So I make a lot of choices along the way where I go, you know what, that doesn't work for what I'm currently doing or how I'm thinking this is gonna look, and then I just get rid of it entirely. So yeah. This was kind of fun because like you were explaining your music, how you kind of like get a bass down, sort of not like like the bass, the guitar, the levels, just like the you would get like a beat or a melody, and then you'd start to flesh it out as you go. For me, this is very much like boom, here's colors, boom, here's their silhouette, like here's a line, and then later I use the same techniques for the shadows. So it very much was like a kind of, it felt more sculpting than it did drawing. I don't know. I've just stayed so much in my comfort zone that it felt so weird to like learn a different style.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I didn't like it at all at this point. Up to this point, I did not like it. I hated it. But I had to keep going because I knew there's always an ugly phase to any piece. So I felt like that for a while. I didn't like it. And then here I'm making more to the background. This is going to be the floor, because again, I want it to look like technology merging into...
Yeah, it's like circuitry. It's like a bus board on a computer.
Yeah. Yeah, this was so much fun to do.
It's satisfying to watch
like,
in
it's
the time lapse.
Yeah, right? Like, when I rewatched this, I was like, dude, that's awesome. Because it's so fun to do. You just went on in Photoshop, if you hold the shift button and click one point and then another, it'll just go straight to that point. Or if you like click and hold and drag while you're holding shift, it'll go in a straight path, like 90 degrees. So yeah. I just used that and just made it was really fun.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of?
What is that?
Like one of those like in between short animated bits in Adult Swim. You know what I mean? Where it'd be like real trippy, like a lots of different colors, like something would eat something and then it would go in its gut and then it would like be like a never ending loop of like that. It's really neat.
Yes. Thank you.
The time lapse effect on it makes it like even more trippy. Like it brings out like a lot of the colors and then it creates like a cool like strobing effect sometimes too. And it almost gives it a life.
Yeah, I really like these speed draws. They're like, it's a really cool way to look at a piece of art and not just like the end result. But like, um, watching the whole process is kind of cool too.
Yeah, you get a little bit of the
That's
inside
one thing I
baseball.
noticed. Yeah, because I did this, so like I was in a different part of my head. I wasn't watching what we're seeing now, like in the way that we're watching it. It's like a different thing from when you're doing it to watching yourself do it. It's weird.
Yeah. How long did
But
the overall piece take?
this was another 12-hour.
Damn.
I'm starting to get better. I know. I'm
Well,
starting
I
to
mean,
get better. I can
it's
feel
12-hour quality for sure. It's not like it's a stick figure. It
yeah.
definitely looks like something that would take you 12
True,
hours to
true.
do.
Yeah, I guess. I just like with paper and pencil, I work at such a fast like workflow once I get going that this just feels so slow.
Uh-huh.
Like I guess that's my reference is like when I do something with paper and pencil, I can just get those things done quick. It was really fun in art class to show off with that because we had to go outside and draw stuff and come back in like a time frame. And I had like a bunch of stuff done, and like the person next to me was like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "What?" um, but this, I felt so like I had to undo, redo, undo, redo. It took me a while to figure out the controls for it and stuff. So there's just elements like that over time I'm just gonna get faster at. So
Yeah, but isn't that the
I
advantage of
feel
digital as opposed to like analog? I guess like you can do that undo, redo, and you don't lose any of the
yes.
integrity of
Oh
your
my
piece.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah, because like erasers are nice and all, but I'm sorry, they don't. It's so
Yeah, they can
hard to
ruin
like.
your piece if you're not like if you don't if it's not in
Yeah.
the perfect condition. If even it's just a little dry, or God forbid you don't
Hmm.
clear the paper all the way, you have the smudge there. Yeah,
Yeah, and
my
it's even worse when you add the element of like. Yeah.
no, you go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
You're the artist.
I was saying with color, I have fun. I was saying with colored pencil, there's like a wax to it. So if you take the rubber and you kind of cause like heat on the wax, it does this weird smear effect. It's not good. Like there's certain types of things you can get, but it's tough. Um, this is when I decide, all right, those eyes are way too detailed. I got to go back to my style I'm going for. So, yeah, I actually ended up liking that more. And I'm basically about done here. Just kind of mess with colors. I think, oh yeah, I had like some more lighting stuff. But I'm at the point where I don't feel I need to change anything. Right now, I'm just adding light and color stuff, pretty much. I mean, I futz with this a little bit, but I end up kind of going back to what I already had it. I decided to not add any real noise because I wanted the crisp lines, so I felt like that was a compromise. Um, yeah, and I just wanted like the background to actually not look so flat, so I added light and those rocks to add the depth, kind of. And then yeah, I just start filling in each blocked out character that I have with a little bit of lighting. Not too much, but just like to get an idea of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, doing that polygon tool, man, it's so fun. You just cut out what you want and then fill it in. That's it.
Yeah.
I used what I learned from my last one with the neon, but I like changed how it worked. So I just did that, which was cool because I felt happy that I learned something from our last thing. Yeah, and so that's that, pretty much. A little bit of shadow. Yeah, it turned out great. I really liked this piece a lot, actually. But I hated it for the longest time. Yeah,
It's
it
really
looks
cool.
kind of like a comic book thing. Thanks. Thanks. I had a lot of fun. Like, a lot of fun. And I'll show you the final render. Boom.
Ooh.
See it? Oh, I disappeared.
Yeah, you did. I fix you.
There I am. Yeah, there's the piece. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's really cool, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thanks. Yeah, it was... I don't know. I had fun, man. You ready to do your piece? I can send this to you so you can look at it more.
Yes, I am ready to do my piece. I, again, being the excellent student I am, made another book report.
Book report. Right. I'm gone. I'm back. I'm gone.
Then I shall press play. The theme for this episode was movies. And since the point of this whole thing is the process, not the product, I decided to take a huge gamble, and I found a lot of samples, and never really worked with samples before, and bet the farm on just going all in with samples. My movie I selected was not any one particular movie, but it was more of a genre. I decided to go for a zombie movie, because I feel like that's, anytime anyone needs to make a movie quick, they make a zombie movie. So I needed to make a song quick, so I made a zombie song in the spirit of a zombie movie. I found this really cool AM radio voiceover track of what to do in the event of a nuclear or radioactive fallout. And with the right reverb and the right spooky noises over top of it, it became really scary really quickly. After a while, I started to determine that I needed to have movement within the song as well. That the story of the AM radio nuclear fallout was nice, but there was no musical movement behind the piece. And that's when I really started exploring with different noises, like sirens, and different tones, like emergency signals. Again, all using samples. I taught myself how to retime and retone these samples so that they weren't completely dissonant with one another. It was truly a lot of work, but I'm glad I took the undertaking because I learned a lot. The one thing I underestimated was how hard it would be to tell a narrative story, like a movie, through a piece of music that used very little traditional instrumentation. One thing I quickly learned was that you could be pretty deceptive with rhythm, and you can create a lot of movement with different rhythms as well. I found a few basic metal hammer sounds in a horror pack off of Splice, and let me tell you, they hit. The first edit of this song, let's just call it the theater release. It was definitely a song. I modeled it more in the style of a video game trailer than a movie trailer, mostly because I found it very hard to create a soundscape without anything to really scape the sound around. I didn't have a visual medium to work off of with this challenge, so it was very difficult for me to create a horrific ambiance without anything to kind of resolve that suspense. I sat the project down, I uploaded it as a private video on YouTube, and I listened to it for a few days, and something just didn't feel right about it. I felt like it was too chaotic, that there was too much noise, that there was too much narrative, and there wasn't enough musical movement. So I decided to be brave and take the risk of adding musical elements to the remix, as I called it. So I went back to Splice. This time, I searched for techno and EDM drums and drops. I found a really good rhythmic piece that I kind of liked. I adjusted the settings in it, retimed it, and then reharmonized it, gave it a different pitch, and then added some automation to it to give it movement throughout my piece. I have another musical effect at the end, and there's a really neat transition that happens that kind of goes from very heavy to very soft. I, a true contrarian, decided to invent the reverse drop.
In the case of nuclear or radiological fallout, people living around potential targets such as military bases and chemical plants may be advised to evacuate. Protection from radioactive fallout will require taking shelter in an underground area or in the middle of a large building. Fallout shelters can be any protected space where the walls and roof are thick and dense enough to absorb radiation. The more distance and time you put between you and the fallout particles, the better. After radiological or nuclear fallout, you shouldn't leave shelter until officials say so.
I'm in awe right now.
Just wait.
Contamination. You shouldn't leave your shelter. Contamination.
Yes.
Underground area. Contamination. You shouldn't leave your shelter. Contamination. The more distance and time you put between you and the fallout particles, the better. Contamination.
That's so friggin' cool, man.
Whew.
What? You
Thank you.
made that? That's
I'm-
insanely cool.
I made that. AI made this, but I made that.
Yeah. The walking animation?
What?
with the walking through the thing, where they're walking through the desert. Where'd you get that?
Oh, that was something.
Or
It was
whatever that was.
like a video export that came in my my
In the
in my DAW. So when I export, I
Okay.
can export it as an MP4 file. And there's like a bunch of like old school like Microsoft Vista media player like fucking backgrounds you could throw on it, and that one was like the most wastelandy I could throw on there. So I
Oh,
decided on
man.
that one. And then the bit where I throw myself in there dancing, you can see my cat made a cameo. She's sitting on the back of my chair as I'm throwing my head around.
Alright, I thought I saw something.
Yeah, that was Tortellini.
Something.
That was one of my cats. Yeah, she was jamming out with me. Yeah. So what'd you think of my
That's-
song?
That is insane. I loved every second of that. That was cool. I loved you jamming out in the middle. I loved Tortellini. Uh, the music is really cool.
Thank you.
Like, you're right, you mixed it where there was, like, something going on, a theme, obviously, and then you had the music blending in with it. That was cool.
Yeah. That I think I
Can't believe you
peaked. I think I peaked on that one.
I you think it's as good as it gets? That was very good, yeah. Yeah, if you outdo yourself, that's gonna be incredible because that was very cool.
Yeah. One of the things I was really tempted and challenged with was not to make this like a 6-minute song. Like I wanted it to be like kind of
Uh-huh.
condensed so that it's like palatable and digestible. But also like I wanted it to have like enough
Yeah.
movement in it that it told a story. And there's a very specific story behind it. I think you and I have joked about it in the past, but I want to elaborate it more throughout the episode. But first let's talk about your piece.
Zombies.
Yeah, pull up your
Yeah? Alright.
send me your piece so I can pull it up.
Bada bing, bada boom.
All right, perfect. All right.
Using Discord, not Zoom. Hey. Oh, yeah, my piece. Right. I forgot about that. Your piece was so cool, man. But yeah, so like I said, I went in with like a concept idea, and it was very hard to explain, but I wanted some type of like, I don't know. I wanted it to be like, I didn't want it to be like you picked zombies and it worked out amazing for you, but I
Yeah.
felt like if I went with one of those, it would have been too obvious. So I went with something really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what this reminds me of?
And
You probably have never seen this movie before, but there's a cult classic with James Woods of all fucking people
okay.
called Terror Drome or horror. It's either Horror Drome or Terror Drome. I forget. It's one of those two. But the whole concept of the movie is that
Yeah.
this guy works, I think, I forget in what capacity, but he works as like a regulator or censor for television or something along. He works closely with television. And then eventually, like, he stumbles upon this grand conspiracy that media is just this giant way of dumbifying, controlling the population, and then he slowly turns into a TV
Mhm.
himself because, like, him alone becomes like the symbolism is that he just becomes overwhelmed by the technology, even though he's aware of the control tactics. He's just too little to do anything about it by this point. And that's kind of like a more extreme example of what that movie is, and that's kind of ironic that you went there, and it's like one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I know you've never
Really?
seen it. Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Yeah, yeah, I haven't seen that one at all. I've never heard of that either. Um, which isn't rare to hear me say, but yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting that we both took it to a horror thing. I mean,
Yeah,
I
well,
didn't
that's
want
kind of
mine
like
to
our
necessarily
personality.
be horror, but it's yeah, yeah. Um, but I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, I really conceptually want to be looking at somebody watching a thing and then that thing being projected somehow out of that person or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I wanted it to seem as though someone else is like you can see the thing over there, the eyeball on the other side, like looking into a screen, and then the wires going up to that computer. So it looks like they're connected in a way.
Yeah,
So
it
I
creates like a
tried to like
feedback
tell
loop.
that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was you can kind of take this image in a lot of different ways, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how what I had in my head as just a concept, what came out eventually as I just started putting stuff down. Um, yeah, I didn't know it was gonna be this, but I'm happy it is because it's very cool. I don't
Yeah,
think I would have
yeah.
made this ever.
Yeah,
If I didn't.
all of the different contrasts don't clash with one another. Like they're all like placed so perfectly. Like the circuitry blends
Mm,
perfectly with the background, and then just above it on the other half of the gradient is like kind of like a speckle pattern that again fits it. And then that's
mm,
broken up even more by like meteor strike impact looking things in the background. And it's very busy, but none of it's distracting. And it's all like a very neutral palette in the background too, compared to like all the contrasting in the foreground. So there's like you're like creating a lot of depth too in your color choice as well. So like there's a lot going on here that's like really it, yeah, 12 hours.
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, I just I'm glad you saw that because I mean that's kind of what I was aiming for.
Yeah, well, I
And
did go to fake art school, so
again,
I do
like I
have
said,
somewhat of an eye.
and I went to community art school, so yeah. I don't know. Like yeah, I tried to hit everything you just said is it was all intentional, but it was so hard for me. Um, you know, because I'm just so used to my style. It's difficult for me to go outside my comfort zone. I mean, I say that, but I made that, but like usually it is. So unless
Yeah.
I'm pushed, and I was pushed because I wanted to make something for the show.
Yeah, and what I like
Um,
about this is that it's
so
so starkly different than your first piece in like so many different ways, but it also has like a lot of similarities in a lot of ways too.
yeah, yeah, the glow from the monitors.
It's like
Like I
almost in
was
the
saying
same
earlier,
position.
I wonder if you're gonna see a theme. You might.
That's
I don't know.
funny.
I don't know how it works when
That's
I
just
do
a weird
do the
coincidence.
art. Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's a
funny.
focal point in the center.
Yeah.
With green.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like green, and it honestly, for me, fit the color. Like, I don't know. What I wanted was very stark contrast with all the colors.
Uh-huh.
Like, very much just like, that's a weird color, but just go for it. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
ended up, like that's the thing is like this style, like you really do have to just completely commit to something that doesn't make any sense or you wouldn't naturally do. You just, yeah. Anyway, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say like that type of green too is like a very specific green. It reminds me of like the terminal text color of like an old DOS machine, you know? Like so like
What's
this
behind
looks
me?
like yeah, exactly. So like just even
I'm
that
there. I'm in the background.
it's like it's just a specific green too that like has its own movement, as I would call it in my like musical idea. It's just like it carries this
Hmm.
idea or motif forward.
Yeah. Cool. I'm glad I was able to show that. Because after you look at these for a while, you kind of, there's a lot of, I think I did it. Like, I did it, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's done. And I showed my wife, and she's like, that's so cool. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's done. It took me a while, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's really, really sweet. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah,
This
these
is a
keep
good
becoming
desktop.
like,
You know
my
what?
desk. There you go. I mean, it is very horror look to it, so it makes sense for you. And yeah, at a certain point, I was thinking of, honestly, Sean, you're making me blush by putting this as your desktop background.
I'm
That's
doing
cool.
it live. Look, you're replacing Diablo and Lifeweaver.
Wow. Wow. All right, well,
Yeah.
I guess I have to listen to your song every day.
No, dude, that's really fucking cool. God, that's
Just
so
having
cool.
your song boot up when my computer. Thanks. Well, yeah, no, I was saying like I went for like those comic books that like not quite Batman, but like those like ones that have really hard shadows.
Yeah.
Um, that's at a certain point that's what I was going for. Um, those like super stark hard shadows and super bright things because those are kind of easier to make comic books because you can just block them out real quick instead of trying to make a nice gradient and all that.
Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah, and I
again,
really
the
enjoyed it. I'm
story.
probably gonna do this style again.
Yeah, but with those dark shadows, again, the story that choice tells that you made is that it's just like it's cavernous and like it's so overwhelmingly dark just like aside from that light. Like it makes me wonder where they are that it could be that dark in the areas where that light's not reaching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I tried to kind of allude to those little shapes on the ground that those were another one of these areas. But I didn't want to like have that overtake it. So you can see
Yeah.
those however you want, but that's what I was going for. But again, I didn't want to have. I wanted mystery. Yeah, I'm glad it mystified you.
I
All
love it.
right. Do you want to talk about your piece? Your piece was awesome. Like
Thank
I
you.
am gonna listen to that later. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so my piece
Yeah, man.
was an adventure, let me tell you that much. So I started off by using Splice, which is a royalty-free sound software. So basically, this is my horror pack. Um,
Mm,
I just like most of the sounds you heard in that song came out of this pack. So not everything is
mhm.
used in there. Um,
Yeah.
I I realized I kind of need to be better at like organizing my workflow, my space if I'm going to be using samples because it quickly got overwhelming making like 3 or 4 copies to have like different rhythms or like different parts of the sample that I wanted in different parts of the song. So if I had
Mm-hmm.
known how much of a like I probably had 30
It
files in
looks like
there
I
that I was using.
froze.
Huh?
Looks like I froze.
You
Looks
did
like I
freeze.
froze. Whoa, I'm back.
Weird.
Yeah,
So
very weird. Sorry, you had 30, you were
yeah, I had
saying?
like close to like 30 just sound waves in there, and like I didn't organize them very well, or like I didn't know how to organize them. And then it just got to a point where it was like so overwhelming. Like I had so many different ideas, and like I could have made the song a little bit longer and probably a little bit more musical, and probably less
Mm.
repetitive in certain parts. But I decided that it was just I had reached like a point of critical mass that I wasn't going to get any further with just how sloppy my workflow was at that point, and that with the samples I had already in the song at that point, I just had to rearrange or remove the ones that didn't fit in that moment and then just deal with what I had there. So it was like kind of like I dug
Huh.
myself into too deep of a hole at first, and then I kind of had to like use
Yeah.
my ear to get out of there. And but now I learned a valuable lesson. Next time I know that I need to, not make 5 copies of the same sample, and or if I do, I need to have them organized a little bit better, grouped a little bit better so I know
Oh, okay.
what they
'Cause
are
you
in my
each time you there's
workspace.
an iteration. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that I mean, yeah, I guess you and I took a very, like, bold approach to
Yeah.
each piece, like, that sounds very committal. Like, "Alright, we're doing this, so it
y-
stays."
Yeah. Yeah, because the choice to go with
Well,
samples,
it
I have
sound
very little control over what the actual like noise would be, like what the product would be. Or at least I
yeah,
personally, like there's ways that you can manipulate them. I'm just not there yet. Like the best I can do is get them in tune and on beat.
yeah. Well, that was, like you're talking about story, you could there was, like, a contamination event, zombies broke out, and then yeah, it just felt like a movie. It felt
Yeah. I,
like, "Alright, cool, the movie's starting," like,
that
kinda,
makes me
and then
happy.
it
Yeah.
like, but at the same time yeah, at the same time, I felt like at a certain point I was watching the movie, like, I don't know, it was
Yeah.
just
You know what it reminded
yeah,
me
it
of
felt zombie
as I was
movie, and
listening
it
to it
yeah,
was it
mm,
reminded me of Zombie World. Like when in the opening credits, it's For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. And then you have like this whole
yeah,
montage that like introduces you to like the whole zombie attack and brings you up to speed. And I feel like my song did that by ending in like that reverse drop. And then so let me tell you a little bit about like where I took the story in my mind with that song. It's like
yeah, please do.
you have like the warning, the radio go out, and then in the background, like very subtly, there's an emergency tone because it's a very harsh tone. I just have it like vibrating very quietly because I don't want it to like blow anyone's headsets out or ears out. But it's there just
Mhm,
enough in the background to be unsettling. That's like an old like that's a trick I stole from movies. Kubrick would do that shit. He did that in The Shining, where he just like turn a light off in one part of a scene, then turn it back on, and then people who are like something's weird
mm.
now, like something changed and I don't know what it is. Like I was trying to employ like some sneaky tactics like that, and I did that
Yeah,
with like
yeah,
an Amber Alert tone where it was just a consistent high pitched tone, but I kept it very low in the background of whenever
mhm.
the radio announcement was speaking in the beginning, and I kind of let that establish the
Yeah, it
story
always
of
felt like we were somewhere,
yeah, and I kind of let that
like
establish
we
like
were
the
always
narrative,
in a setting.
yeah, and then I had it like kind of break more into musical, and then it was like you have the fallout and then the allusion to the contamination, and that's kind of more like when you're like hiding out in the bunker and like the time slowly passing and you just kind of hear the people being attacked above you, and that's what that like that scream is
Mhm.
over the music. And I'm really proud that I hit that perfect side chain on that scream, and I was able to like extend that sample out for like an entire bar when like doing that was like a huge breakthrough for me. It's like the equivalent of copy paste in like a Word document, but for sound, it was so huge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I that sounded very different from any of your other stuff. And it looked different too. You usually just have a still image or nothing or whatever. But this time it was like all packaged and stuff.
yeah,
I liked that. I liked your
thank you.
presentation too, like your whole explanation about that. Because like as it kept going, I'm like, oh my god, that's a lot. And then you added more and more and more. I'm like, holy shit. And it all
Yeah,
made sense in the end. And as you explained it, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you explained it very well.
thank you,
The book report is very nice. I like that.
thank you. So as you know, Brian, we joked about Project Muse being like an MK Ultra project, like we're being forced against our will to do these projects because some of these prompts are going to be painful and we're going to hate them. So like our motivation
Yeah,
for
but we're gonna
grinding
do them
through it,
anyway. Yeah.
yeah, is that we pretend like we have to. And I said, well, my
Mm-hmm.
nickname growing up has always been Spud. So if I'm Operator Spud, it sounds like I'm some like Irish special like black ops like super
Yeah.
soldier program. So I like to think of this song as
Yeah.
Operation Spud's origin story. So after the bomb goes off and after like all the screamings and it reaches a bridge in the song where a second explosion happens, right? And then what I
Uh-huh.
decided to do because I knew it was going to be a hard transition was I gave it like a little bit of break, like a measure of break, but I decided to carry over some of the percussion instruments so that like it still kept the
Mm-hmm.
same like rhythm and pace of the song before so it still felt like it was a transition, like it wasn't something new. But I introduced entirely new elements at that point where like one of them was like a heartbeat monitor, so that's me,
Mm-hmm.
my body, my conscious brain being hooked up to a potato. and then you hear and
That's
then you hear
awesome.
and then you hear gunfire eventually, right over top of that. That's me
Yeah.
going out in my potato exoskeleton suit piloting my potato mech to fight the zombies. And then you hear
Oh, I need to draw that.
and
I
then
need
you
to draw
hear
potato mech. Sorry.
Yes, and then I fail, and then you hear crunching, and then you hear the zombies yelling brains.
Uh-huh.
And then if I had more,
Mm.
if I had more, if I felt like I had more time to work with, like within the song, I would loop that
Yeah.
like heartbeat monitor again, so that it would like repeat the cycle, so that it was like they're just injecting me in potatoes to go fight zombies.
Jude, so you really went in on this one. You really
Yeah,
that's awesome,
yeah.
man.
No, I had a lot
I
of fun
love
with
that
this one.
story.
I had a movie in
Potato
my
mech.
mind about like that Tom Cruise movie Looper or whatever the fuck it was, but like with a potato
Mm.
instead.
We're gonna make this movie, Sean. It's happening.
the
It's in
Spud
this
Looper.
setting. Spud Looper. Oh man. No, that was cool. Like everything you just explained just added more context to it. So I'm like excited to listen to it again and try to listen for those things more. But it was cool because you had a lot of moments, but then you had a lot of like little tiny things happening throughout. So my ear was always listening
Uh-huh.
to like something else you were tossing in there.
Yeah. Well, one of
So
the
it was
things
it
that I
was
did
fun. It was a lot of fun, I guess. Yeah.
thank you. One of the things that I did while like I was in that first draft phase was I was listening to a lot of other electronic music, specifically like Dance with the Dead is a band. I'm not like electronic music is something that's new to me. I'm more of like an old school metalhead. So I was trying to think of
Yeah.
like how I can make it more musical in that sense, in the like the electronic sense. And one of the things that I noticed was that they create a lot of movement or like the sense of movement just by adding and subtracting elements. and it's not even like substantial elements all the time. Sometimes it's just like a hi-hat. Like a hi-hat will come in and just be like over top of the beat. And then eventually it'll go away after you get used to hearing it, and then you have the sense of movement. And I realized that they were just really just adding and subtracting it. They weren't doing anything new to create that movement. They were, and like the patterns were always like usually pretty simple. So that's where I had the idea of like adding rhythm and like using those sirens, like that whoop sound. Like I felt like I was able to give it like a lot of musical movement while it was still just being like a narrated piece, just by using those sirens and like those hammers and like the ambient sound. There's like a storm, like a lightning storm in the background. I have like very low, again, just to like kind of being like ambiance tone to cause unsettlement.
Yeah. I was very unsettled. And it was fun to like kind of each time there was I think you said it once where it was resolve, where it's like you have a moment and then something happens where you're like, okay, like that was that was a moment where it was resolution, where you started something but then you moved on to another thing. Like I definitely felt that throughout the song. Yeah, there's that. It reminds me of one song. I'll send it to you after this, but I think it's called Silver Bullet, and throughout it you can kind of hear like werewolf stuff. And,
oh, you have sent me that song before. Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was like
that's what
when
I
was first getting into making music, like a couple years back.
Yeah. Yeah, and hear like a gun and then a shot, like they shot a wolf with a silver bullet. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Because I heard and that's cool. That's the reason I sent you that was it had like a horror element, and I know you were into that. It also, that one was, it leaned way more towards EDM than yours. Yours was very like atmospheric and EDM at the same time, and I was into it. It's cool. I liked it.
Thanks.
Like I said, I'm gonna listen to it again. I really like, after we're done, I'm probably gonna show Dino. I'll tell you what she says.
Well, you got a desktop background in him.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like each one of these is gonna become like I was gonna put this as my desktop background for a second, and then you said it, I'm like, oh well, we can't have the same one.
Yeah.
So I'm probably gonna end up making my next one. Maybe that's my niche. I make cool desktop backgrounds.
Yeah. No, this is
yeah,
really
no,
sweet.
I think you and I gauged each other kind of last episode, and I saw what you did, and I'm like, wow, I feel like I need to step it up. And you said this thing with, wow, I need to step it up. So both you and I like elevated each other, like trying to match each other, and I feel like we both just like really went for it.
Yeah, I feel like we're
it's cool that we did, because like
I feel like we're currently in a creative arms race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's between you and me, and they got to take either you out or me out, I have to be useful. So I'm gonna make the better pieces.
Oh, I see you're Russia.
Yep, I'm gonna have to. I see you're Russia, and I raise you an American. Oh man, yeah, no, like, because that yours was crazy, so now I have to go even further on my next one.
Mine was crazy. Yours is fucking insane. Needs to be in a padded room.
No, yours needs to be shot and killed.
It was, Brian. That's the lore.
Oh, Say. No, like, no, man, that was so much. You're like, you got all these samples and yeah, no, I'm glad you and I like we're just patting each other on the back, but like seriously, this is fun. This is so much fun. I can't wait till we do our next one.
I know. Well, we should think about our next prompt.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that here, or do you want to do it later, or see whatever the hell we get? You could have a random word generator, actually.
Okay, let's pull up a random word generator. Actually, I'll do it so we capture it.
You can do it. You could have it on the screen. Yeah.
Okay. Google.
That way we have no choice.
Okay. Random
Google.
phrase. All right. So we'll just.
Yes.
Should we pick? Should we do 3 and pick the best one, just in case it doesn't make sense?
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay.
I like that.
Beating a dead horse.
Like, I could beat a dead horse.
I don't know how I could. You know what?
You could find. Yeah,
I just figured it out. I just answered my own question. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by and hanging out this far. I have been Sean. He is Bryan. This is Project Muse. Thank you for stopping by, and stay tuned for a free preview of the song uninterrupted by our laughter, banter, and speech. Bye!
In the case of nuclear or radiological fallout, people living around potential targets such as military bases and chemical plants may be advised to evacuate. Protection from radioactive fallout will require taking shelter in an underground area or in the middle of a large building. Fallout shelters can be any protected space where the walls and roof are thick and dense enough to absorb radiation. The more distance and time you put between you and the fallout particles, the better. After radiological or nuclear fallout, you shouldn't leave your shelter until officials say so. Contamination. You shouldn't leave your shelter. Contamination. Underground area. Contamination. Contamination. The more distance and time you put between you and the fallout particles, the better. Contamination.